My name is Rebecca Fast. Welcome to Parent University, our first workshop in our spring series for 2021. We are so happy that you are here, especially joining us on this beautiful day. For those of you watching live, we thank you for tuning in. For those of you who might be watching this at a later date on the video recording, we thank you for taking the time to dig through our Parent University channel and find this valuable workshop. Today, we're going to bring you information about Long Beach Unified School District budgets and school budgets and how you can become involved in the school at the decision-making processes at your school site. And so we are excited to bring that to you today. Before we do that, though, I would like to just share a little bit with you about the driving belief and the philosophy that really drives a lot of the work that we do in Parent University. In Parent University, we believe in this data that when parents are involved, children get higher grades and better test scores, that they have better attitudes and behavior in school. Data shows that students who have parents who are more involved are more likely to complete homework, and they are more likely to complete high school and go on to post-high school education, to college and beyond. And it really is that partnership of schools and families and students that really is successful. And boy, have parents been involved this year more than they ever thought they ever would, right? So we know that we're preaching to the choir in a lot of this, that parents are really involved this year, and we appreciate all the support that you are giving our schools and to our students this year. In Parent University, we also have a lot of helpful links that are on our website. So I'm just going to take a moment to direct, if you have more questions or if you have further, want to find out more about what's happening, where you can find that information. And I'm going to direct you to our school district website. On our school district website at lbschools.net, you come to our homepage, and on the front homepage, there are some buttons here. In Parent University, we are lucky to have a button right here on the front page. And if you click on Parent University, it's going to take you to our homepage, and right on the front page, you'll see a gallery of our meetings, a calendar of all parent meetings. And so parent meeting groups from DCAC into our Concerned African American Parent Group, all of the parent workshops here are here, and you can find information, you can find links. For example, our Mindful Mondays that we're hosting are back, and if you click on that link, it'll take you to the Zoom and where you can hop on and join us next Monday for our Mindful Mondays. You can also register for our Mindful Mondays sessions here in English or in Spanish. If you continue to scroll down, you'll see our Parent University channel. And if you click on here, it'll take you to all of the workshops that we've done. All of the workshops are available in English, Spanish, and Khmer. And you can see the video recording of all of the parent workshops for the last 2 years. We have some self-guided workshops down here. So we really invite you, if you have more questions about Parent University, to explore our page. If you scroll down to the bottom here, I'm going to go all the way. I think it's, oh goodness, I passed it when I was scrolling. Our suggestion box, my apologies. We have a suggestion box here also. If you have questions or if you have comments about what workshops you'd like to see in the future, we invite you to fill out our suggestion box that's here. Okay, so that's a little bit about Parent University. I'm going to go back here and talk a little bit about reopening in schools, because I know a lot of parents are having questions about that. In fact, in our Google form that we have coming through, we're getting a lot of questions already on the reopening of schools. March is going to be an exciting month. There's a lot happening. There's a lot of moving parts. Some of us have kids that are going to be heading back to school. Some of us have kids that are going to be continuing with online learning. Either way, our families and our kids are going to be affected because there's a lot happening and a lot of exciting changes this month. To get up-to-the-minute information, there's that link. I'm going to do that one more time. To get up-to-date information about what's happening with reopening of schools, you can click on Coronavirus Response, this link here, and it will take you to this page. And in this page, there's the school reopening school safety plan, and you can view that here in English, Spanish, and Khmer. And underneath here, you can see all of the most current up-to-date information. Anytime we send out an email or our district sends out information, it's all categorized here. So you don't have to go back and look through an old email to try to find the most current information. You can log on to our website, and it'll take you to all of the updates that are here and even the videos from our superintendent, Dr. Jill Baker. So this is a great page. There's a lot of resources about attendance and grading and sanitation and how the schools are being cleaned and getting ready for our return to school. So we invite you to check out our website and find a lot of good resources and information there. Okay, one more thing I'm going to point out for today before I pass it over to James is if you have questions for today, right underneath this link where you logged in today, there is a Google form so you can submit your questions. And so today, again, we're going to be talking about school budgets. and how you can be involved. We have a presenter, James Suarez, and our Director of College Career Readiness, Robert Tagorda, is also here with us today. So we invite you to ask your questions. We invite you to stick around, and I'm going to pass it over to you, Mr. Tagorda. Thanks again for being here, everybody.
Thank you, Rebecca, and good afternoon to all of the parents who have joined us this afternoon. First, I want to thank our Parent University team for working so hard and diligently to respond to requests from our parents and our families, and in particular for putting this workshop together. It takes a lot of work and effort, and I want to commend our Parent University team, including Rebecca Fast, Kelly Hodge, our parent coordinators, Yolanda Huerta, and Sam Keo, for always ensuring that our families are welcomed in our school system. This particular workshop, I wanted to preface before I turn it over to our Assistant Director, James Suarez, because it was specifically requested by members of our community and by numerous families who wanted to know how they could be more involved in school decision-making processes. So if you think about this framework that Rebecca was alluding to earlier today about the importance of parent engagement, there's so many different ways for parents to be involved in their children's education. You can help them at home with homework. You can ensure that they're able to log in for online learning. You can volunteer at the school site. But beyond that, you can also participate as a leader who helps to make informed decisions at the school site. So today's workshop is specifically intended to provide you with resources and knowledge to be able to participate as a parent leader at our school sites. And one thing I want to emphasize to everyone is that it is critically important for our parents and our families to be involved in that way, because we can't make decisions at our schools without input and feedback from you, our parents, and our families. So Jim is going to go over the school decision-making process. At a later point this spring, we're also going to provide a workshop that follows up on this one that focuses more holistically at our district's overall budget. So while today is going to be focused on what happens at a school site level, later on in the future workshop, we're going to provide some information on how you can gain a deeper understanding of our school district's overall budget so that you can provide information and feedback to us as a school system on how we can best support all of our schools in the Long Beach Unified School District. So please stay tuned for that. Lastly, I want to thank Jim Suarez for putting together this workshop. I'm going to turn it over to him right now, but Jim has so many responsibilities in our department, including supporting our school sites with budget and decision-making processes. So if you have any further questions after this particular workshop, you can ensure that you can contact our office and he can provide some support to you. So Jim, let me turn it over to you now.
All right. Well, thank you, Robert. I appreciate that introduction. And Rebecca, I appreciate that too. And I appreciate being able to present to you today. As Rebecca said, it is a beautiful day, and just I appreciate the fact that we'll be able to talk a little bit about site level budget decision-making processes. So let me get right to it. We're going to talk a little bit today about the resources available at the school sites. And so the first part of my presentation is going to talk about the resources at schools. Following that, we're going to talk a little bit more about the process that by which school sites are able to make some decisions about budgeting. I'm going to share with you a little bit of the School Site Council training slides. And then finally, I'm going to talk a little bit about, just a tiny bit about the districts process. So let's get started. So we're going to talk first about three major resources at schools. If you take a look at this slide, the first major resource is Title I. And Title I is a federal program. It's designed to help schools who serve a high percentage of students who come from poverty. Title I funds provides interventions, programs, services to students who are not academically performing where we want them to perform. This funding is very restrictive, and the allowable part of Title I is you have to consider it to be like above and beyond the regular school stuff. I always give this example is you wouldn't be able to buy a textbook or to use Title I is a resource for a school desk, because that should already be there. Title I has to be above and beyond the regular program. This is really known as a supplemental program to the regular program. In Long Beach Unified School District, there are currently 45 Title I schools. And I'm going to be presenting a little bit more in depth about Title I next week for DCAC and next month for DELAC. So I hope that you're able to join us. And I will, towards the end of this presentation, I'll be giving you a little bit of an idea of how you can access both DCAC and DELAC and talk to you a little bit about what they do. So this is Title I, and that's just one of the major resources at schools. Let's talk about another resource. It's most of you would probably have heard of this, which is called the Local Control Funding Formula, or LCFF. This second funding source is at all schools. So every school in the district has LCFF funding. This is a state-funded program. And this has, unlike Title I, this has a lot more flexible uses. It absolutely could be used for interventions like Title I, but it can also be used for other general priorities at a school site. Finally, I want to talk about parent involvement, because at our 45 Title I schools, there is a set aside for parent involvement. And these funds are supposed to be used for parent training with the goal of growing leadership capacity. Now, the good news about parent involvement is not only can you use this resource, but you can also use the two other resources. So you can use Title I for parent involvement activities, you can use LCFF for parent involvement activities, and you can use this parent involvement for Title I schools for parent involvement activities. So that sums up the three major resources at school sites. So let's talk about how we can utilize this, how school sites are able to utilize it. So I'm going to talk about the process and the leadership about these particular funds at the school sites. So site leadership for the utilization of these funds is a shared responsibility between parents and staff. Let me share with you the different shared responsibilities that we have. So ELAC, which is English Learner Advisory Committee. They're a committee at school sites where parents of English learners represent English learner issues. And I'm going to talk about each of these committees in a moment. But their role for ELAC is to advise the school about programs and services designed to improve the academic achievement of English learners. Sometimes English learners are called ELs, so we use those synonymously. School Site Council. And we abbreviate School Site Council with SSC, so you might see that. This is a group that's made up of parents and staff, and one of their biggest responsibilities of the school year is to work on and approve the school plan. Speaking of the school plan is known as the School Plan for Student Achievement, or SPSA. The school plan is a comprehensive plan that budgets important programs and services to meet the needs of students. You are going to hear me talk about meeting the needs of students throughout this entire presentation. And the reason we do that is because when we think about budgets, we think about dollars. But we can't think about dollars until we talk about the needs of students, because that is what we do at school sites. And that is going to be something that I will highlight over and over again. We need to meet the needs of students. Finally, the elected officials who represent the community, known as the Board of Education, they approve all school plans. So let's get into each one of these as a whole and find out a little bit more about what they are composed of, how they run their businesses, etc. So first, we're going to start with the English Learner Advisory Committee, or ELAC. ELAC is not at all schools, but most of our schools have an ELAC, because an ELAC must be formed at a school that has enrolled 21 or more English learner students. Again, 21 or more English learner students at a school site. That school site must form an ELAC, or an English Learner Advisory Committee. This is a committee whose responsibility is to advise the school in the understanding of English learner needs. So what are their key duties? Well, first we start off with finding out what the students' needs are for English learners. What types of struggles are they having? Is it grades in mathematics, or is it absenteeism? So that you need to know the needs of students in order to be able to provide resources for them. The English Learner Advisory Committee also needs to have a good understanding of the reclassification criteria for students to exit out of being an English learner into being a fluent English proficient student. And part of that is the understanding about the assessment process for that particular reclassification into a fluent English proficient student. That the assessment that we use is known as the LPAC, or English Learner Proficiency Assessments of California. In my opinion, though, the biggest duty of the ELAC is to recommend programs, services, and interventions to help English learners attain English proficiency. So the composition of ELAC is a real emphasis on obviously English learners, meaning that ELAC should be composed of mostly parents of English learners, because they are the voice of the students who are EL students to be able to make those recommendations for interventions. Elections for becoming a member of ELAC are usually done in the fall at the school site. This year has been obviously a more challenging year. They still did run elections at each school site that needed an ELAC. It was the ballots could have been drawn up virtually as well, but just know that most regular school years when we're at school, it's usually held in the fall, the elections, there'll be ballots, etc. There are a minimum of 4 members, and the 4 that are listed right here are the at least 4 members. The first is the chairperson. That must be a parent of an EL student. The second is the DELAC representative, and I'll explain what DELAC is in a moment, but that person must be a parent of an EL student. The third person is the principal or his or her designee. And the final member is the secretary. Again, it's a minimum of 4 members. Some ELACs have 10 members. Other ELACs have 20 members. But the law states that you must have a minimum of 4 members. I would say that most of our ELACs are anywhere between 4 and 10 members is about a really good ELAC committee to be able to discuss programs and services for English learners. So let's move to the next major committee at the school site, and it's called School Site Council, or SSC. And School Site Council is at every single school. This committee really does a deep dive into the needs of all students, but they also must focus on student groups who are not achieving as planned. School Site Council develops, approves, and evaluates the school plan for student achievement, which this is where the budget part comes in, because the school plan for student achievement includes proposed expenditures out of the funding that I went over in the first part of the presentation. School site council's duties include analyzing a variety of data to see who aren't meeting expectations. You have to know who you're trying to provide interventions for, and you have to know that by using data to discuss those particular students or student groups. Knowing the students who are not progressing and what subjects they're having difficulty leads to identifying interventions to assist those students appropriately and to support improvement. So school site council approves interventions, materials, professional development, climate, which is can be social emotional issues, it can be attendance issues, it could be positive behavior supports, as well as parent involvement. Now, school site council has a legally defined representation. Again, members are usually, elections for members are usually held in the fall, but that's not true at some schools. But most schools hold the elections in the fall, and the elections represent a specific group as defined by the law. So I want to talk a little bit more about that, because the key to school site council is the word parity. And I want to be very clear that school site council parity is the law. School site council's membership comprises a parity of community and staff for a balance of voices, which I think is really important. We want to make sure that the appropriate supports and the appropriate voices are being heard, so that we have a school that is using their resources in a way to help kids, especially kids who need it most. So let's talk about our elementary and K-8 schools. This is what the law says that their composition needs to be. And what you'll notice is that we have school staff, which is 5 members, and community, which is 5 members. Again, this is the parity piece. So on the school staff side, you have the principal, who is mandated to be on school site council, 3 classroom teachers, and 1 other school personnel who is not a classroom teacher. And then on the community side, you have all parents, 5 parents. And what you'll notice with this is we have a balance of stakeholder voices, 5 staff and 5 community. Similarly, we look at middle and high school. In this case, they have 12 members, and you'll see that 6 members are of the school staff and 6 members of the community. The 6 members of the school staff, you have the principal, 4 classroom teachers, and 1 other school personnel. On the community side, you have 3 parents and 3 students. And there's been a lot of talk about why should students be on there. I think hearing the voice of students and their concerns and what they see might not be what adults see. And I think it's important to have student voices on the school site council. And again, we're talking about a balance of stakeholder voices again, with 6 staff and 6 community. So I want to look at a slide. This is a slide that is part of the school site council training presentation. So all school site councils receive training at the school site. And this is one of the slides that we use. And really, this is talking about expectations of school site council membership. Because we want to make sure that the committee work is so important. And we have to make sure that we are working on discussions that are not only respectful of one another's, but also representing the people who voted for them. But the bottom line is we all, as a committee should be working on behalf of student success. And I think that's really important. If we can keep that in mind, even all the other things that are going on around us, or the discussions, maybe differences of opinion, and that's okay. But what we really need to focus on is student success. So this is a slide from our training presentation, and basic expectations. Members should attend all the meetings. And sometimes people say, oh my gosh, it's a lot of meetings. And generally speaking, I would say that there's probably 2 meetings per month in the fall, and then probably 1 meeting a month in the spring. So what's that, about maybe 10 or so meetings a year. Another basic expectation is to participate, ask questions, share ideas, because you have to be able to discuss things. You're looking at it from a perspective of helping students and budgeting for students. You need to share ideas. Of course, we can all agree to disagree sometimes, and some people have very strong opinions about different things when you're in a committee or in a group. But we need to be committed to the process, and the process talks about helping students. And you have to be respectful of other members. Listening is very important, and sharing ideas is very important as well. And lastly, I think that it's always a good idea to keep in mind, if you are a school site council member, that you're elected to represent your peers. So teachers elected teachers, other staff elected other staff, parents elected parents, and at secondary schools, students elected students. So the people who are on school site council as a parent are representing parents, and I think that's really important. You are a representative part of the committee to share ideas and to talk about things and to discuss things to make sure that we are helping students. So let's take a look at the school plan for student achievement. And as previously stated, school site council has the responsibility for creating the school plan for student achievement, or the SPSA as it's commonly called. The SPSA is a comprehensive plan that includes budgeted programs and services to meet student needs. And here are some key chapters in your SPSA. The first, we talk about a needs assessment. So using data to analyze the good and the bad of a school. In other words, analyzing, looking at successes and celebrating those successes, but also looking at things that we can improve in order to take a look at students who are succeeding as we had hoped. And that's where that's where those discussions come in, as I previously talked about. So what happens after the needs assessment and the data analysis, they write findings and goals for 4 areas: English language arts, mathematics, English learners, and climate. Another chapter is interventions, and this chapter is filled with the ideas that have been approved about looking at which students or what programs and services we're going to provide for students in academic or social need. This is probably the most robust chapter of the school plan, because it really does share. Hopefully it aligns with the needs of students, and it shares all of the planned activities to help students in need. Professional development is provided in a chapter. School climate is another chapter where school site council approves programs and services that will help with students and their social emotional needs. Parent involvement is a whole chapter in the school plan. And then we have the budget, and I want you to notice how far down the budget is. And I'm going to explain a little bit about why I said that in a moment. But if you notice, I'm keying these chapters up in here, and then I put the budget. I want you to think about that for a moment. Why would that be way down here when we're talking about budget 101 or we're talking about budgeting at the school site? I'm going to get to that in a moment. It lists the ELAC members and the ELAC recommendations. Remember, ELAC in the fall, one of their biggest duties is to make recommendations to the school site council about how to help English learners at the school. School site council members are also listed in the school plan. But let's talk about kind of a review of what we just went through, which ELAC. So the English Learner Advisory Committee, they make recommendations to improve achievement of English learner students. They really are focused in on that one student group. School Site Council, on the other hand, is a committee that makes sure that we're looking at all student groups, especially those that are academically not performing. School Site Council is the only site committee that can approve the school plan and its budget. And that budget should be designed to improve the overall achievement as well as to try and close the achievement gap. Finally, the Board of Education has final authority. They are your elected officials, and they have the final authority about approving school plans. So with that, I'm going to stop right here. Hopefully I can reshare when I get it. And I just want to ask Rebecca or Kelly, do we have any things that I can help with?
Hi, James. We do. Thank you for all that great information. Learning a lot here. We do have a question from a parent. He is asking, or she is asking, why is it structured and required to have a president or a chair and other members who run these, school site council, et cetera? If all are volunteers, then why does anyone get the title of president?
Well, that's a great question. It's really not president, it's a chair, and really the chair's biggest job is to ensure that the meeting is run efficiently and run according to the agenda. Because oftentimes you have people who have different items that they want to bring up at the school site council, and really the school site council, as I said before, must be focused in and laser focused in on student achievement. And so sometimes you'll have somebody want to say, oh, what about let's repave the parking lot? Well, that really has nothing to do with student achievement. So the chair is there to ensure that the meetings are run correctly. They don't have any more power than any of the other members. Every member has one vote.
And that, I thank you. And thank you for explaining it. And that's the only question we have so far. So awesome. Parents, if you're out there, keep the questions coming. But James, I'll let you go ahead and continue. Thank you.
All right. Now, I apologize if I mess this up. I'm going to try and screen share again. So here we go.
Okay.
Am I good? Okay. Thank you. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about considerations for schools. So when we talk about considerations, I'm going to point this out as what I was alluding to before regarding the budget. So here is the piece that is very important. Everything begins with data and student needs. See that little piggy bank over here? It does not begin with budget. And I want to be pretty clear about that because school site councils receive their allocation projections very early in a year, and people get excited to see, oh, well, we have this amount of money, or this amount in our LCFF pot, or this amount in our Title I pot. We should be, we know it's there, we shouldn't be looking at that. What we need to put in laser focus is the data about students, because if we keep thinking about students, we can't go wrong. This is also a slide from that was part of the school site council training. And this slide, I want to kind of share with you because I think it's important to understand that there is this delicate balance of ensuring proper stewardship. And what I mean by stewardship is we have to meet the needs of the students with the funds that are allocated. But first is prioritizing student need. So what I'm asking school site councils doing is ask when they're in their school site council meetings and budgetary items come up or ideas about programs and services are being discussed, I want them to focus on 4 particular questions. What data do we have to say this is a priority for us to fund? It's important because those funds are precious and many times small. And so we need to make sure that we are prioritizing student needs and especially students who are really, really struggling. 2, is this allowable? And do we have enough funds to make a decision about this particular program or service? 3, does this activity meet the needs of our students? And 4, is this activity targeting our students who are having difficulty in school? If school site council can keep these 4 questions in mind when they're discussing budgetary items, when they're discussing ideas about programs or services, this keeps the focus on what should be the discussion, which is student need. And I want you to notice something. We talk about data. What was the first chapter in the SPSA? Needs assessment with data. We talk about needs. Does this activity meet the needs of our students? And we talk about targeting students or student groups who are struggling. And I think that's really important, and that is the law when it comes to Title I. This is another slide that we use as part of the school site council training. And the reason we use this is because oftentimes school site council, people kind of misunderstand the scope or the charge that school site council is supposed to have, which is all about the single plan and ensuring that programs and services are being addressed for overall school improvement. And sometimes, you know, people get in their mind that, well, that's a really good leadership committee and they've got all this money. Well, that's not true. It's not a leadership committee. It's not a school management committee. It's not a fundraising committee. It is a committee that is designed to ensure that the resources are properly spent based on verifiable data for programs and services that help kids. So like I used the example before, we're not talking, the school site council shouldn't be talking about paving the parking lot or things like that. They really have to be laser focused. So when I use this, I want to call your attention that notice that the committee should not be functioning with this type of function. They really need to be functioning laser-like focus on kids. So now I want to be very brief in talking about our district committees, because when I was asked to do this presentation, it was supposed to be regarding our school budgeting processes and some of the school committees. But I also know that there are some interest in district committees, and it's interesting because there's some committees that are really aligned to from our school sites alignment to our district committees. So I want to show that to you graphically. So let's look at analogous committees. So I have I'm going to have a chart here that focuses on the school sites, which you've heard of 2 of them, and then the district level and how these 2 are like cousins. So first of all, at the school site, we just talked a lot about school site council and what their charge is. But at the district level, we have something that is very similar to school site council, and that's why I call it a cousin. The cousin of school site council at the district level is called the District Community Advisory Committee, or DCAC. And at DCAC, there is a lot of training, parent training, as well as information regarding budgets and such. But the members of the DCAC work with data to make recommendations to the Board of Education about meeting the needs of all students. This really does, DCAC really does have a Title I focus. So much of the conversations talk about Title I and Title I issues. And then at the school site, we just talked about ELAC, or English Learner Advisory Committee. And we talked a little bit about looking at their school and the needs of English learners at their school. With their cousin is called DELAC. I'm not sure that was very creative, but ELAC and then DELAC. So this is at the school site and this is at the district level. And for DELAC, they work with data, again, to make recommendations about English learner students' needs to the Board of Education. Both of these two committees meet monthly. And I think that's really important. And I'm going to share with you how you can find where they meet. And in this case, we're meeting virtually, but hopefully we'll get back to our regular meeting monthly at locations such as downstairs at the community room in the board building for the DCAC, and for DELAC, they usually meet at Martin Luther King Jr. Park in Long Beach. But right now we're still in our virtual setting. But if you're interested in taking a look at these committees, I'd invite you to go to the Long Beach Unified School District website, which is www.lbschools.net. And what you'll see is a parent tab at the very top. And then you go down to the parent group meetings tab, you click on there, and you will see a link to the different groups, such as DCAC and DELAC, as well as some other groups of parents, which is the Coalition of Involved African American Parents, or CIAAP, or CAP it used to be called, and EONA, which is Educational Opportunities for Native Americans. And most recently, we have our Pacific Islander Educational Voyage. We don't have a link on there right now, but we are working on ensuring that that link is provided as well. So these are some of our district committees, and this is where you can go to find what they do and get involved. Speaking of getting involved, oftentimes I get calls about, I think that there's not a lot of transparency, or I don't know how much money the school has, and then there's rumors in the community, the school didn't get this much money, or the school is hiding money and all such. Well, hopefully you can share this with everybody, because it just is a great thing when it comes to transparency. So all site budget allocations for LCFF and Title I are located on our website. So let me share with you what that looks like. Go to the website, and actually the front page, this is the home page of our website, you will notice at the very bottom down here, right next to Parent University, is the budget page. And I'm going to click this, and you're going to see, when you click budgets, what you're going to see is links to LCFF for the school sites, and you're going to see links to the Title I budgets for the school sites. And when you click on those links, you'll be able to see every single school and what their allocation was for the year. So please share this with everybody, because I think it's important that, oftentimes there's this sense of mistrust between maybe the community and some schools. And we've really tried our best to get out the word that here is the allocation for school sites. In addition, those budgets are posted on the in the single plan, so that's another place where you'll be able to take a look. So let me conclude my presentation by really encouraging you to get involved, because there are opportunities at the school site to become involved with discussions about these budgets and how to help kids. And you don't have to be necessarily a member of School Site Council or a member of ELAC, because these, and I'll get to this in a moment, these meetings are public, and I'll explain that in just one moment. So, to summarize, the members of School Site Council are elected, and they're elected to represent their peers. And School Site Council has parity in membership, meaning that there's not an overwhelming group of people that have this control over everything. It's parity. It's either 5 staff and 5 community, or 6 staff and 6 community. I think that's really important. The members of ELAC are elected voices. The members of ELAC are elected as voices for English learner students. And I think that that's really important because historically our English learners struggle on assessments, and there is an achievement gap. And I'm here to say that we acknowledge that there's a gap in achievement for this particular group and African-American students, etc. And our charge is to ensure that we close that gap, make sure that all students are gaining access and all students are improving. And what better way to express those kind of thoughts and ideas and really positive recommendations if you are on ELAC or on School Site Council. So as I was saying before, both ELAC and School Site Council are public meetings, meaning that the meeting date and time should be announced at least 72 hours in advance of the meeting, and it shows how to access the meeting. So in regular kind of on-campus times, it usually would be announced on campus at the parent board or in the office. And it also, many schools use School Messenger and their website to announce these meetings. During the school closures, most schools have taken more of priority to their own website and a School Messenger to get the messages out. One of the things that, and I think this alludes a little bit to the question that was asked about a chairperson, it has to do a lot with some public comment, and public comment is mandatory to be put on the agenda. So every single ELAC and every single School Site Council meeting will have public comment, meaning that there will be a time set aside for public members to talk about ideas or concerns or whatever. But I want to be very clear about this, because many times some public members come to the meeting with this I have this idea and I want it acted upon, or I have this concern I want it acted upon, and that cannot happen by law. School Site Councils and ELAC have to stick to their agenda, so they are not allowed to act on any items that aren't listed on the agenda. So that's why the agenda is so important, and that's why a chairperson is very important too, because the chairperson would be able to kind of say, I'm sorry, I thank you for your concern, and we have taken it down, but we cannot take action on this per the Green Act, which is the law for conducting these meetings. They just thank them, and maybe at that point they can say, I'm going to share this with the principal, and maybe the principal can get back to you. But I need to be pretty clear on that, is public comment really needs to be about items listed on the agenda. And finally, my biggest takeaway, hopefully for you, is about this, that data needs to be the foundation for all decisions, and student needs must be the heart of all decisions, because that's the job of ELAC and School Site Council. So with that, I really hope that this gave some insight into budgeting at the school sites. I am going to be taking a much deeper dive into Title I budgets. I'll be presenting at DCAC next week, March 4th, and I will be presenting the Title I budget presentation, same presentation, for DELAC on April 19th. I really appreciate you taking the time this evening. And if there's any other questions, I'd be happy to comment.
Hi, James. We do have a couple of questions here. So hopefully, I think a couple of them might be short because I know you talked about it in your presentation. One might require maybe a little bit. So here we go. So how can parents have access to the data to be more prepared for a school site council meeting?
Excellent question. So there are some sites, there's some sites by the California Department of Education. One in particular is called DataQuest, which has all the schools in the state, and it has a lot of information there. Generally speaking, at the school site council, because they're really focused on their own school, they bring, the principal or the chairperson brings data to be able to take a look at because that's what they want to discuss. I could go into a little bit more about where you can find it on the district website. In each school, there's some data there, but I won't be able to kind of go over that. But I will say this is that the school site council and the ELAC should be prepared before they walk in the meeting with data that they need to use. Also, the school plan for student achievement, the SPSA, has loads of data that's incorporated into it as well.
You're right. Once you start asking for data, parents, it's out there. And I do believe on each school's website, there's lots of access to testing data, and a lot of the core survey data is right there as well. And kind of core survey might lead to this next question. This parent is asking, how do you measure the need for funding for SEL or social and emotional learning? How can we measure that?
Thank you, Rebecca. You're right on target on that one. One of the biggest data pieces that is a fairly new data set is the core survey. So each year, right around this time, actually, the core survey is given to parents and students and faculty at each of the school sites, and the questions were developed based on some experts in the field regarding social emotional learning. Questions such as, do you feel safe at school? Or questions such as, do you have a connection with a teacher? Or do you feel that you've been prepared by your teachers? So there's a lot of these types of questions that when a school site council or an ELAC step in, they can see some of the things that they should celebrate. And they also see things that either the students or the parents or the faculty, for that matter, find as more challenging, and then they can address those needs.
Okay, and there's a couple more here. I'm just going to read it. So why is it that teachers and parents sometimes have to donate materials to the school? We're always having fundraisers at schools, right? As parents, we know that there's always a fundraiser coming through. People have to buy things out of their pocket for school activities. Don't schools get funding by the state?
Yeah, so
that's the gist of the question.
It's kind of what I kind of alluded to with that training, which was, this is not, the school site council and ELACs are not a fundraising organization. PTAs usually are more of the committees that kind of try and help out. And one of the, I guess the easiest answer to that is that the funding that is available through the state and federal programs, which are the ones that I spoke about at the very beginning, the LCFF and Title I, they are really restricted towards ensuring that we have funds for interventions for helping kids. So when it comes to like carnivals and such and things that you want to donate to, that stuff can't be funded out of any of the state or federal programs. I guess that's the easiest way. So some schools find it necessary to try and fundraise.
Right, Dad's for
that
donuts.
Helps.
You can't pay for donuts, right, with school site council money or with federal funding?
No.
Okay, yeah. So there's certain things I know when I was on school site council, it's very specific money that we can spend it on, and it's interventions based on that data, which kind of leads to this last question here that we have is, how do you turn a school site council from being teacher-centric to student-centric?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, and I have to, let me just preface this. Not all school site councils function in the best way, and just like anything else, there's degrees of understanding and capacity. I won't sit here and say that all school site counselors are doing really the best job ever, But I will say this, that there are a lot of school site councils that are doing fantastic work. Please remember that nobody's an expert on, well, let me take that back. Most people aren't experts on school budgeting, right? And so when you have people who come together, you have people who are looking at it from their perspective. So a teacher is kind of looking at it from a teacher's perspective, and a parent is looking at it from a parent perspective. And sometimes there's not the alignment or agreement, for that matter, about how to use these funds. And that's why I try and say that the focus needs to be on the data, because the data will tell you where the students' needs are, what students are struggling, what courses are they struggling in. For example, if you have a group of students who are failing math, then maybe it's time to provide a math intervention. And I think that's really the important kind of key, is that if we stick to the data, and that turns a school site council into looking at student need and not necessarily whatever centric, parent centric, principal centric, or teacher centric.
Yeah, using that data really keeps everybody driven. Okay. We could probably stay and have you answer questions here all afternoon, Mr. Suarez, but due to time, your time and the time of our audience and our guests who are with us and joining us today, we'll pause it here with our questions. But I know you were plugging that you're going to be giving this presentation and touching on these topics again at DCAC next week. So parents, if you still want to learn more, we invite you to come to DCAC. You can find that information on our Parent University website. You can find the Zoom link and information on how to log in, or you're always welcome to email us at parentuniversity@lbschools.net. Again, we want to thank you all for tuning in today. We want to thank Multimedia Services for assisting us with today's Zoom. We want to thank Mr. Suarez and the Department of Equity Access College Career Readiness for hosting it and being our guests here today in this workshop. And I think we're done here. That's a wrap. I think, Mr. Suarez, thank you. And thank you everybody for tuning in. We'll see you next Thursday.
Thanks everybody. Take care.